Hello, everybody who is listening today to a very special fan edition of the Breakfast Pudding podcast. My name is Becky. Some of you may know me from the person that runs the Battalion's social media. And just for a bit of context, Stephen has his own Patreon. It's a wonderful community over there. And every month he releases a podcast called The Breakfast Pudding. And I believe we've just had episode 55 released this month. So it's been very well long standing since COVID. And also, this year marks officially 20 years since the band formed, early 2005. So it's quite fitting to do some celebrations for the band. Now, I couldn't do this podcast without a very special guest. Um, it's been widely quoted that he knows the band more than even they do themselves. So I please welcome the unofficial fourth member of Lost Alone, Matteo. Hello, Matteo.
Yeah. Hey. Hello.
How are you today?
Yeah, I'm fine. How are you?
I am good, thank you. I pulled out a couple of quotes that I saw on Twitter that has been used to describe you, which really made me smile. Stephen
Okay.
once quoted, "He saw us before we saw ourselves." I think that was in reference to you seeing the band during their early days and
hmm
knowing more about their shows. And also, you've been called a lost librarian, which was quite fitting actually, because when I was looking through them tweets, Stephen actually said you should actually do a Lost Alone podcast or a website. So here we are.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Can't wait.
Thank you for doing this. Now, I was just actually having a think about how we actually first met because I feel I've spoken to you online for years, but was it the Battelle solo show in 2017 that we actually first met?
Yeah, the one at the St. Pancras Old Church, I think. Oh, that
Yeah.
was the first time. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you'd gone to the Derby shows in 2014 there. Well, I quote final shows.
Um, no, I wasn't able to do it because I had to work and
Mm.
I was devastated. But I did three shows in October, like in Hamburg, Cologne, and Berlin, like the final shows in Germany uh, in 2014.
God, it just feels so long ago now, doesn't it?
Yeah, 11 years.
And it's been nice that we've just kept in contact online and just, I think 99% of our chat has been about Lost Alone anyway, hasn't it?
Yes, true.
I'll start then.
Anyway, yeah, sorry to interrupt you. And just wanted to say thank you to for the preparation and the opportunity to talk to you on this podcast episode, about my and your favorite band. Yeah, I'm very thankful.
That is so lovely. Yeah, well, I couldn't have done it without you because you know more about the band than me as well. So I would have been a bit stuck. Um, so I'll just start then, Matteo. How did you first discover the band, and really, what was it about them that has made you follow them for pretty much 18 years now?
Yeah, excellent question. Okay, so we have to go back in time for a long way because I went to an Enter Shikari concert. I think it was in April 2007, and before that, I had discovered Enter Shikari at a Billy Talent concert and bought tickets for them. And so the opening act for Enter Shikari was Lost Alone. And for all those
Wow.
who experienced Lost Alone in their early years, um, I don't need to say too much for everyone else. I think they were just crazy, and like in a good way, um, like crazy intense. They took the stage for themselves, really, and for me, it was like immediately I realized these guys have something, and so it was more like a coincidence, because I discovered Enter Shikari through Billy Talent and Lost Alone through Enter Shikari, so it was like a chain of circumstances. Yeah. So and for me, like an important criterion is always how good is a band live. Lost Alone are incredible. I don't need tell you that uh, because you have seen them, I think, more than me. Uh, yeah, I don't know how many times have you seen Lost Alone live?
I have a little mental tally because I include the Battelle solo shows, but I'm on number 49. Um,
Wow,
they were
amazing.
they did obviously quite big tours and big support tours, so for me it was a lot easier for travel compared to I know you've been
Yes.
dying for them to come back to Europe.
Okay. So back to my story. Well, they played there as a support band for Shikari, and back then, Stephen in particular was a madman on stage. For example, I don't know if you've seen the videos, but he liked to use his shoe to play guitar. So there was a part where he flipped his shoe and catched it with his hand, and then he started to play a riff or something. So yeah, like I said, crazy. And or he would jump around on his knees, doing "Unleash the Sense of All Times." Um, uh, and he was wearing some knee pads. I have a funny story about his knee pads because um, that I know from Stephen that these knee pads were broken at some point, but he still used them, and the plastic pressed into his knee every time, so it was very painful to do this. I mean, it's mad to jump on your knees on stage, but I mean, okay, the energy and everything, yeah. And I remember some various things about that very first concert, because it was so special for me. And for example, Steven threw his towel into the crowd, and some tall emo guy caught it, and Steven pointed at him. I don't know why I remember that of all things, but I do. I mean, it's like, yeah, yeah. And they played 6 or 7 songs during that time, like when they were supporting Shikari. It depends on how much time they had. Each venue has different
Yeah.
schedules. Sorry, most of the time the set looked like this. They played Genevieve, Unleash the Sense of All Times, Elysium, Our Bodies Will Never Be Found, Blood is Sharp, and maybe a short version of Standing on the Ruin of a Beautiful Empire, like 5-minute version or something. Um, and sometimes there were even at this, you know, at the very early for me it was very early time of the band, but you have to remember that they were already there for 2 years. But for me it was the early years, and there were new songs like History Romanticizes Traitors or Escape, and yeah, like I don't know. I can still hear the riff of History today because I love that song so much, and I'm a little bit angry that they never have done something with it. But yeah. So yeah. Anyway, I was very impressed. After the first show, and I bought the album "Say No to the World" afterwards. And yeah, remember this was 2007. There was no music streaming, and only things like YouTube or MTV or the radio. And Lost Alone,
Oh
they're very
yeah.
lucky because, sorry?
I just said, oh yeah, I forgot there's no streaming back then.
Yeah, yeah. No streaming, nothing, and yeah. And Lost Alone, they had a great label in Germany. I think it was called Marx Capital Records. And this label did an incredible amount of advertising for Lost Alone. And their music videos were on TV and sometimes on German rock radio stations. And 2007 was a great year for Lost Alone. They played over 100 concerts, and in this year alone, I saw them live at least 4 times, and yeah, either as support or as a main act. Yeah, to come back to your question, what about them has made you follow them for 18 years? And that's hard to explain. I tend to, if I really like a band or an artist or an author or so on, study them down to the smallest detail.
Hmm.
I just want to know everything.
Yeah.
And that's also a bit due to my job. I'm a librarian, and one of my job there is to find information, and I'm I'm really good at that. So yeah, that's a bit of a habit. Yeah.
So cool.
In yeah, thank you. Yeah, in the early days, when I got to know Lost Alone, there was this wonderful online forum, sayknowtotheworld.com, and through this forum, I made many friends with whom I'm still friends today, and there was a very lively exchange there, also with the band members. And I remember there was the Mark's Monday blog, where Mark wrote about the past week, and it was legendary. It was very funny most of the time. Yeah, but I digress. Yeah, I've been following Lost Alone ever since for many reasons, because I owe them a lot, as already mentioned, friendships and memories, and plus their music never gets boring, and they have a quite unique sound that always has elements that surprise me. And that's very important for me. The older I get, the more I look for those details, things that surprise me in music. And yeah, for me, Lost Alone does exactly that. Yeah, just as an example, a song like Over Under a Spell, which sounds quite like a normal rock song at first and then has this breakdown in the middle. I think that's great and surprising for me. And I love these things. And yeah, now I see the band and the people around it. Yeah, shout out to James. More like a group of friends that I can see from time to time.
Sure, I
So
think that's so good when you said their music never gets boring. I think that's just
yeah,
why, as well, they've just kept that magic going for so long because you just don't know what they're going to release. The songs are so
exactly.
they're so varied, but they've still got that core Lost Alone feel to them, don't they? That you know it's a Lost
Yeah,
Alone song, but it could be so different.
exactly. It's like it's familiar but different. It's the same with the Stephen Bartel solo songs. It's familiar, but it's very different from Lost Alone. And yeah, it's I cannot really describe it. I don't know how the sound comes together. Maybe it's the guitars that they use, or the amplifiers, or yeah, the tech gear that they use. But yeah,
I agree. It's just once you're in, once you've listened to them, that is it really. You're hooked for life.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, sure, yeah. And how did you come across the band?
so I was a bit later than 2007. Um, I it took me a while to actually get into music, especially rock music. Kind of transitioned from pop when I was younger. Um,
Hmm.
and they were supporting My Chemical Romance on their tour around the arenas in the UK.
Hmm.
So I saw them in 2011 in Newcastle. I was at university at the time and I kind of
Hmm.
skived my last lesson to go and queue. So I queued for a few hours and still got a really good spot, which was pretty excited about. Um, and I was really only there for My Chemical Romance. I didn't know who the support were at the time. I
Hmm.
was just excited for the gig. But when they came on, I was just like, who are these? Like, they were just so energetic. And
Yeah,
towards the end of the set, it felt like I was at their show. Considering they
yeah.
were there to win over the crowd and just bring their energy for the whole arena show, I was like,
Hmm.
wow, this has never happened for a support like band before. And I, similar to you, I was like, I must know more about this band. I must know who they are and I must know more. Um, and I think at the time, Twitter was still very early, but they were quite active on Twitter. And I remember
Yeah.
tweeting at them like, "Oh my god, I love Josette." And then I think they were talking about they must have been talking about their new album "I'm a UFO" because that came out 2012, didn't it?
Yes,
Um,
yes. Hmm.
and I think they started with. Do you know what? I can't remember the full set list, but I just remember it was just such a good set that I had to see them again. Um,
Yeah. Maybe they started with Sin and Sinners because in
yes.
2011 they almost started every show with Sin and Sinners because it was a front runner um, to be on the second album. Yeah.
There we go. A fact I've learned today. But yes, now you've said that, that's exactly what they did open with. And they were just so cool. And I kind of didn't want their set to end, even though I'd gone for My Chemical Romance. I was like, wow, cool. I need to see you. Um, I didn't actually see them again until 2013 because I was at
Oh
uni.
wow, okay.
I
Mm-hmm.
I was a bit of an introvert. I didn't really go out too much, and I didn't at the time. I couldn't drive. I didn't really travel in that, so I just, I suppose, just didn't make an effort for any gigs. Which I look back and I'm like, why didn't I just go? But hindsight is wonderful. Um,
Yeah.
but then I saw them. They were going to play locally at the. They were on the Darkness tour. There was Support in the Darkness, and
Yeah, that was a very large tour, like 40 dates or something, or
oh,
wasn't it?
it was huge. And
Yeah.
I'd only just started driving again, so I had a bit more freedom, and I saw that they were coming to Lincoln, which at the time was near my parents' house. So
Mm-hmm.
grabbed a ticket and I was like, yeah, I need to go see them again. And it was typically the one show that they had to cancel because they broke down on the way there. I think in the
Oh
history
no.
of all the shows I've seen, it was the only show that they've ever had to not play. I think, well, that brings me on to my next point by why I've followed them for so long. They're so consistent. They
Yeah.
won't cancel, like, at all. They're just so consistent. And, but except in this case, when they unfortunately did break down. Um, so I actually sold my ticket in the queue, and I actually bought a ticket to see them in Scunthorpe instead because I thought, "Oh, no, I need to see them." And Scunthorpe wasn't too far from Lincoln in terms of travel.
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
in November, it was very cold. I went to see them. I queued up for a bit because I wanted to be at the front. And I actually made a little banner. Um, it had like the bells on it. It had like a quote from the bells because they'd just released the bells at the time. And I was so
Mm-hmm.
excited to go to a gig. And again, they were just so magical. They really just brought so much energy. And you could tell they just loved being there. And then I think it was the time, when Stephen comes into the crowd and does Do You Get What You Pray For? He didn't come right
Yeah.
in, but he came to the barrier and I was like right there. I was like, oh my God, like, what is happening? This is so fun. I'd never experienced anything like that with a gig. Um,
Yeah.
and from then I just thought, oh my goodness, like I just have to keep seeing them again and again and again.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
there was just
Amazing.
something so cool about hearing, your favorite music like live. So I'd listen to them quite a lot, even though it was only the second time I'd seen them. And then
Mm-hmm.
hearing your favorite like words in that live, it's just such a cool connection. Um, and then similar to what you said about eventually you just make some friends. So it was the Christmas Derby show I went to next, and I met
Yeah.
Manon there, and I met a load of people who had followed them who were from Derby. And for me, in between, I just finished university. I didn't actually have a proper job. I was just really trying to get by. So it was just, I'd found a little place of like happiness at their gigs, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just felt kind of like I belonged somewhere for a bit, which sounds a bit cliche, but it's just really nice to find a group of friends that also share the love for something, isn't it? Um,
Yes. Yes.
so that's similar to why I followed them, similar to your reasons why I followed them for so long. They're just so good on
Yeah.
stage. You know you're going to get a good show.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Every time.
And yeah, and now I've just made really long lasting friendships. I can't believe it that I've been friends with people over 10 years and I still hang out with them
Yeah.
today.
That's amazing.
Um,
One thing that I wanted to add is they did cancel some shows, but very rarely. It was one show in Munich. It was I think the last one of one of the German tours in I don't know 2009 or yeah something like this. And because Mark dropped some heavy gear on his foot, and they were so nervous that it might have been, like a serious accident, and they were about to record the second album, and they were yeah, like, okay, we cannot, the recording in danger. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
yeah. So it was, yeah, they canceled one show in Munich, and but yeah, like you said, it very rarely. I never cancel shows. Yeah.
Seems to be just when something's broken down van or a broken
Yes.
foot
Yes.
potentially, which is completely
Yes.
fair.
Yes.
But yeah, they've done obviously so many shows over the years, and that's pretty good standing, to be
Hmm.
honest. Um,
Hmm.
so I'll just move on to. I know this is probably a hard question. What has been your favorite Lost Alone gig ever, or top three if that's a bit too hard?
It's too hard. I drew a top three because it's very difficult. Yeah, I can give you top three, but the order is up to you because I don't want to rank them because it's all very, very, very great shows. And the first concert that comes to my mind is the show from December last year, because the
Mm-hmm.
impressions are still very fresh, and I think it was one of Lost Alone's best concerts ever. And I think it's always something special to hear a whole album live. Last year I saw Green Day, and they did Dookie and American Idiot, and that was amazing. And now Lost Alone, and they did the whole album too, the SOS album, and it was a very nice experience because yeah, I met you and so many friends um, all around the world, and I've been in Derby with 5 friends from Berlin, and yeah, the atmosphere was incredible. The sound was very good, one of the best sounding Lost Alone shows I've ever heard. And it's not often that you get to experience a club concert with many 23, 24 songs. Um, yeah, so hearing songs like I Was Born to End This Way live was great because these songs are not usually played, you know. And yeah, so that's my first choice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, the second thing that comes to mind is a concert from December, also December 2007. And Lost Alone was on a big European tour, and I went to Hamburg. It was December the 3rd, and every now and then there's that one show where everything fits, and the audience could sing along to every single song, apart from the new or unreleased songs, of course. But yeah, that concert was crazy. They played the Star Chorus and Predators in a Maze for the very first time, and they played the Gospel, History, Romanticizes Traitors, and Ethereal, and so many more. And
Wow.
it must have been, yeah, it must have been around 17 or 18 songs. It was incredible for a band with one album. And yeah, it's a concert that I will never forget. And yeah, the day after that, they played in Berlin, which was also very good, but nothing like the night before. And the band had very big support in Germany from 2007 to a bit, let's say 2012, and the clubs, the concerts they did um, were full. It was often very sweaty because the clubs in Germany, yeah, rock concert, yeah. And yeah, it was all thanks to the label I mentioned earlier in
Mm-hmm.
Germany. And yeah, after Lost Alone switched to the major label, that unfortunately changed. The third concert, mhm, that was in Berlin in 2010, and in March. I think it was a one-off show because they did. I don't want to say anything wrong, but I think I haven't prepared that well. I think. So I think it was a 30 Seconds to Mars tour, and yeah, they did a one-off headline show in Berlin. So so the second album still wasn't out, and it was a bit frustrating as a fan as well as for the band, I assume. Um, and then they played a fantastic show again, about 18 or 19 songs with stuff I heard for the very first time. I remember songs like Orchestra of Breathing, Paradox on Earth, Do You Get What You Pray For, Vesuvius, The Downside of Heaven is the Upside of Hell, and all of them unreleased, And they also played a song called War, but I don't remember specifically if that song was ever used again. Yeah. And it was the first and only time, as far as I know, that Avril Sanchez was played live. And Avril Sanchez is it's special anyway because it's played in standard E tuning, and most of the Lone songs are either in E flat or C sharp. So yeah, it's one of the odd songs. Yeah. So and I can give you more individual reminders if you like to about concerts or stuff.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, yeah, we're traveling through time now. Yeah, one concert was in Berlin at like 1 in the morning because another band was playing before them, and that was in September 2008, and
Wow.
it was so cheap. It cost around €6 or something, and it was still so good. Um, so you never had the feeling that whether at a festival as support or as main act that it was only about the monetary aspect, because like you said, every show was played with full energy. And yeah, in December 2008, like just 3 months later, they played again in Berlin. So that was a time where every few months they went to Berlin to play concerts because they wanted to test new songs. And that was the last concert I saw them play live with the old bass player Tom. And yeah, I will always remember that concert because they played Vesuvius and Blunt Force Trauma, among others. And Blunt Force Trauma is now called The Belts. And yeah,
That is
yeah, but
a
it
cool
didn't have,
fact.
yeah, it didn't have the breakdown back then, but it was, yeah, it was like the the structure of the song and the lyrics and everything. It was, yeah, it was already there, but it was not, you know, not the bells.
Oh
Yeah.
man, I feel we're probably going to have to do like a second podcast because there's absolutely no way you're going to be able to share all your in-depth knowledge in one podcast. I already know there's going to be a part two. I'm
Okay.
already
Okay. Yeah.
thinking of like even more things to talk about at the next one.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, for me, it's always good to have questions because I have so much in my head
Hmm.
about Just Alone. So, yeah, I need to narrow it down. So, yeah. But coming back to this one show in December 2008, I had wished for Predators during the show, but unfortunately there was no time left, and they came out after the show and played the song on acoustic guitar. And that was the beginning of the acoustic elements during or after the shows. That was the very first time, and yeah, ever since, yeah, the rest is history.
That is
Yeah,
so special that you were at the first one and it was your like request. That is so
yeah, it's
cool.
so crazy, yeah, and amazing. I mean, it was, yeah,
I
crazy.
remember
Yeah,
their acoustic set they did after Barcelona. Um, that was so
yeah.
lovely.
I heard so many good things about this Barcelona show. I wish I was there.
I know, and
Um,
me and Beth and Ant, who flew over for Spain, we wish we flew to Germany as well because obviously at the time we unfortunately didn't know that was going to be their last run of shows for a while, but
yeah,
I've heard good things about the German shows as well. You sound like you had a really
yeah.
good time.
What else can I say? Yeah, Lost Alone was a guest several times at a free festival called Bochum Total. Um, in 2000, they played like 4 times in a row every year, like 2006, 2007, 2008, and 9. And in 2007, they had stormtroopers on stage. I don't know why, but but
Wow.
they just had. Yeah. And in 2007, I was there with my brother and some friends, and yeah, like I said before, that was the time when the concerts. That was the time where it started they started to open the concerts with the song Sin and Sinners.
Hmm.
And they played a song that they had only played there. It's called Extremist. All that I'm allowed to say about the song. uh, by the way, I don't know. Yeah, Sin and Sinners. I already told you it was planned for the second album, but also songs like Escape and History. They were all planned, but they didn't make the cut due to all the delays. So it's like the lost album, you know.
Mm.
And you have some quite good demos or the demos of them on YouTube or on Spotify because they were so well developed and tested on stage and live. And so yeah, it's a shame that they couldn't do like another album with all these great songs, properly product with proper production.
I love History
Yeah,
as well. It's such a good song.
yeah, yeah.
I
I love
am.
the riff.
I also can't believe you've
Yeah.
heard the gospel live. So jealous.
Yeah.
It's one of
Yeah,
my
I even
favorite
I even have a
songs.
set list. I even have a set list, and I will send you a picture. Where is it? Written on the set list. Yeah. Anyway, Bochum Total was the first concert with Alan for me, and he had made his debut in Derby a few weeks or months earlier, and the first I don't know, it was May 2009 or something that he his first show, and yeah, it's very funny because um, James didn't seem to have checked the equipment that carefully because one of Alan's bass strings broke after two or three songs.
Oh
So
no.
it was a great debut for him. And yeah, I always remember it because that never happened afterwards, you know. And yeah. Oh my God, I'm talking so much. What about you? What have been your top three concerts so far, if you want to add?
Oh yeah, please don't apologize for talking too much. It's so honestly so cool to just hear all this history. I know because we've only really spoken in person after gigs and it's often quite loud. It's I don't think I've
Yes,
ever really just asked you anyway. So no, this has been amazing. I will echo
thank
the
you.
show in December. Um, that's just been as one of my favorites. I think you're right, hearing a full album live is just so special. And Shapes of
Yeah,
Screams is one of my, well, I would say my favorite album of all time. It's just kind of got me through such a tougher time. I was in my early 20s. I didn't know what I was doing with my life or anything. And
hmm,
when you just hear that album and some of the lyrics are really, really meaningful. But it's also one of them albums that there's nothing that you want to skip. It just runs through so smoothly. And it's just
yes,
almost just a
absolutely. Hmm.
perfect album and it's complete. You kind of need to listen to it all in one to really appreciate kind of the album. And like hearing, obviously, discovering that in my 20s and then finding out they were gonna play the entire album like 10 years later, I was like, oh my goodness, what an amazing experience. But then they just played a whole another show afterwards. It was two Lost Alone shows in one. And
Yeah,
I don't think it mattered when you discovered the band. There was something in that show like for you. It was nice to see kind of the span of Lost Alone fans from like 2007 all the way to literally that year for people who may have discovered them.
yes,
I think a couple of people I met had seen Stephen on the LS Dunes tour where he filled in and then were at the show. I mean,
amazing. Yeah,
that's
yeah,
just so cool to bring all those people together. And you're right, the atmosphere, catching up with friends, it was one of my favorite like days of the year last year. So that's got to be top. I really liked their album launch show for Shapes of Screens they did in London in 2014. It was absolutely packed. Um, we were a lot of us were trying to promote the album on social media, like tweeting it, Kerrang at the time and all those different saying, "Oh my god, like our favorite like bands released a new album today," and it was just such a good atmosphere, and it was like a
yeah,
celebration of the album, and it was quite nice. I don't think they played the album in full, but they definitely played a good. portion of Shapes of Screams, and I am.
Yeah.
During that tour, they were bringing people on stage to sing part of Love Will Eat You Alive, and I got pulled on stage for that one. So that was a very cool experience.
Oh, that's so
Singing
nice.
in the
Yeah.
crowd. Did you go on stage for one of the shows?
Yeah, several times. He liked to bring me on stage because I'm quite tall, and he always, he remembered me, and when he sees me on in the crowd. But back then, mostly on some German shows in Cologne, he put me on stage doing Honey and Burlesque, and
Incredible.
one time he even handed me a guitar. Well, the guitar was not plugged in, but so I could do like yeah, I was feeling like a rock star because I was on stage with a guitar with them, and yeah, so yeah, several times.
It's such a cool feeling. I'd never experienced anything like that before, and I was like, "Whoa!" Like, I'm looking into the crowd, I'm singing um, one of my favorite songs. It was just so surreal. Um,
Yeah.
and I think as well, one of my ultimate favorite gigs ever was the Milton Keynes kind of comeback shows. So they did with, I saw them where Placebo and My Chemical Romance were playing as well, and
Hmm.
it was just such an amazing feeling because that was the first proper tour back since they had their long kind of break, and it was so emotional because when your favorite band says that they're kind of stopping or they're not able to continue, it's really sad, and you're like, I'm never going to see them again. And then
Yeah.
I did see them again. I was like, wow. Um, and again, it felt like I was at their show during their set because they were just, I mean, Stephen was running around the stage. He was really working at it. It was nice to see all the band together. There was so much energy. Um, and I was just like, oh my goodness, they're back. This is the best thing in the world. Um, and I love Placebo and My Chemical Romance anyway. So seeing them afterwards as well just felt like a really complete
Yeah,
gig.
that's a perfect lineup for you.
Literally,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
16-year-old me
Amazing.
would have been like, I can't believe you're seeing all your favorite bands on one night.
Yeah.
Um,
Amazing.
it's hard to pick though a favorite gig because each one is special for different reasons, isn't it? Like seeing them
Exactly.
in a
Yeah.
small club night or a massive arena, it's still special.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and I think as I've seen them more throughout, I've just met more friends as well. So it kind of makes, like, Derby over Christmas was so special because I got to obviously see you. I know Manon flew over. I caught up with Beth and Ant. I saw kind of Danielle and Bex, who I'd met earlier in the year. It was just a massive reunion of friends, which was so
Yes.
lovely.
Yes.
And obviously, I met all
Yeah.
your friends that you flew over with as well.
Yeah. Every other person is like, oh, hey, Matteo, and hey, and so yeah, it was like a gathering of friends, really. Yeah. It's
It was so
amazing.
it was so lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel we could probably have a whole podcast episode on shows alone. That could be the next
Yeah.
theme. But I'm gonna quiz you now on what is your favorite song and why. And I know you've tweeted about the Star Chorus more than anyone in the
Yes.
world. But is that your top, or is this something else that's
Yeah.
yeah?
No, no, it's my favorite song.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because yeah, several reasons for this. Because it was played live super rarely. Um, I'm pretty sure only 3 times, and I was there the first time it appeared live, so it's a special feeling for me. And when I started playing guitar, well, I taught myself really so. Wrong than right, but it was one of the first songs that I could play, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I still love playing it today because it has a calming effect somehow, and I love the mix of the loud and soft bits in that song, and it reminded me when I first heard it of Nirvana in some way, and I used to be a very big Nirvana fan before Green Day and Lost Alone,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, so that made some instant connection, and yeah, one funny thing, the part from minute 4:20 is also one of Alan's favorite Lost Alone parts. yeah. And if any of the band members should hear this, I won't stop bugging you to play it live again sometime. Sorry.
I hope you hear it live again. Um,
Yeah.
that's really nice that you got to hear it though at some point, and
Yeah, but
it
it's
was the
so
first.
long ago, 18 years now. It's amazing. And yeah, I would like to ask you a similar question. If you could only listen to one Lost Alone song in your life, um, what would it be?
It's such a hard question because I keep cycling between like a top five, but I think the one I've listened to most is Our Bodies Will Never Be Found. It's just,
Amazing.
I'm not very good at describing kind of why. It's just more than it's like a feeling. It's
Hmm.
it feels weirdly nostalgic, but I don't really have a nostalgic to tie it in with, but it's just such a good song. Um I've got Bottle Your Echo for a Keepsake like tattooed on my foot. I just
Yeah.
really love that lyric and well the whole song really. And it feels really kind of like old school Lost Alone style, which I like that whole album, Say No to the World. I really love the sound of that album. Um,
Yeah.
but every time I like it comes on, I've got it on so many playlists. I can't skip it. I'll listen to it on repeat sometimes. It's just like it's just so good, which is not very
Yeah. It's a
descriptive,
great
but
song.
it's
Great song.
just so good. And I remember hearing it for the first time in Barcelona. So because obviously when I first started seeing them, it was more I'm a UFO or even the Warring Twenties and Shapes of Scream songs.
Hmm.
It didn't often meet the set list. So when they played it for the first time in Barcelona, it was so bittersweet because I knew it was one of their last shows for a while, but I finally heard it live. So I was like, oh my goodness, they've
Hmm.
played it finally. Um, and that was actually, it was in Madrid, not Barcelona, but um, yeah, it's just such a good song, and it's I could listen to it forever. Really, I'll probably never
Yeah.
tire of
Amazing.
it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It never gets boring. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's just something that it's just so good and easy to listen to, and I really enjoy it. I think a close second would actually be the Final Call for Forever. I really like the chorus. It's such like
Yeah.
a belter. Um, and when it builds up, they played it at 2000 Trees, which was so good because it was they just released it, but it's not made the set list since. So I'm doing a you. I keep bugging them to bring it back, like you with the Star Chorus. I'm like, please just pop it back in the set list, just one more time.
Yeah. Just keep it up. In 18 years, you will hear it again.
Yeah, I'm way behind the queue. If any song's gonna come in, it's got to be the Star Chorus. Maybe I need to start bugging for that to give you a chance as well.
Yeah.
Um, but
Oh.
yeah, it's so hard to narrow down, and because there's just so many for just different reasons. Um,
Yeah. It's yeah. I mean, for the band, I can only imagine it's so hard because they now have 4 albums. They have all the B sides, the
mhm.
standalone singers, and yeah, you can only play so much. And yeah, um, yeah. It's. I mean, it's for me the set list in Derby was almost perfect. What was missing? I think Vesuvius and maybe the Star Chorus. But yeah,
If they'd have just played the Star Chorus, that would have been your perfect set list. Let's be honest.
yes, yes, yes.
um,
I
no,
think I think they try. I think they tried it in rehearsals, but decided, some other time.
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, hopefully they'll bring it back. Um,
Yeah.
I'm wondering as well because obviously they're notorious for like being super lovely and meeting everyone after the shows. Which is it's so cool to have that chat with them after. Can you remember what happened or what the first experience like when you first met the band?
The first time was show that I mentioned before when they played Predators because yeah, Stephen obviously recognized me when I was outside, and he said, "Oh, are you?" Yeah, and then we took a picture, and yeah, we talked a bit, but not like in depth.
Hmm.
So, but in Bochum, after Bochum Total in 2009, that was the first time where I had spoken to the band for a little bit longer. And yeah, that was they thought it was really funny that I had come all the way from Berlin to Bochum, and yeah, and I think it was 2011 that they gave me the opportunity to meet them before a concert, and we talked a lot there. It was at that time Chess. I don't know if you know Chess, but Chess was their tour manager during that time,
Hmm.
and yeah, it was. We talked a lot there. It was a 13th concert in Berlin, and Steven was a bit superstitious and hoped that everything would go well that night. And yeah, of course, everything was great. And yeah, after that, we met up again and again. First, at concerts, and later, just like at a yeah, in private.
That's so cool that you just built up that like rapport and got to see them so many times and have those longer conversations. It,
Yeah,
it was nice to see. Was it after lockdown and that lifted? Did you get some merch hand delivered to you in Berlin? Did I remember
yeah,
seeing that? Yeah.
yeah. It was after Brexit and COVID, and
Yeah.
the post yeah, the postal service prices were insane, and I asked him. I wanted this green Battelle shirt. I
Oh
think
yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it was I think it was a green Battelle shirt, and I wanted to order it, and I said to him, "Is there any chance that you're coming to Berlin in like a few months and you can bring it to me?" And he was like, "Yeah, of course." And yeah, so he delivered it to me. Yeah, that was very funny.
See, that
Yeah.
is service there. Like, if anyone
Yes.
asks, like, why are you following this band? You're like, well, they actually hand deliver merch if you ask. I
Yeah.
mean, you can't get much better than that, can you?
Yeah. True.
Um, oh, that's so cool. And I know you got to speak to them as well after when you flew over this, like, for Milton Keynes, didn't you? And for Derby. Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
just
yeah,
so cool.
I love it. I mean, it's yeah, it's such a special moment because you know, Lost Alone is the music is with me for 18 years now, and I mean, when I meet them, it's not like w- we're talking a lot about music stuff,
Hmm.
like what like about specific songs and about the keys and about yeah, the rhythm sections and stuff like this because yeah, I have a lot of friends and it's quite unique to have someone who is so much into music and knows so much about music. So it's a yeah, very pleasant to have a conversation with someone who knows so much about music in every aspect.
Yeah, it's just that amazing connection. And especially if you like love the music that you're listening to, they're playing on stage,
Yeah,
and then you get to have almost like a debrief after. It's such a cool experience, um, and I think it makes the gigs even better, doesn't it? Because it's just that added connection, um, and I think everyone's like so respectful as well,
yeah,
and after the shows, and everyone is there to talk about the music and their music, which makes it so much better, like so much better environment.
exactly. Yeah.
Uh, I remember the first time I met them, which was after the Scunthorpe show, but I actually don't remember what I was actually said because I was so nervous and I probably just dribbled on. I don't even know what I said. Um, I was just a bundle of nerves because I'd never, to me, like I'd heard so many, like I'd listened to so many bands, so many music, but I'd never met anybody. And
Hmm.
I was like, oh my goodness, like what do I say? I didn't want to sound too cringy. Um, but they were of course very lovely. They signed my CD, they took a picture, I think Stephen asked that you come into the Derby Christmas show, and I didn't have a
Yeah,
ticket, but I said yes, cool, I'll go, and that's when I decided to go. Um,
amazing. Yeah.
but yeah, I think I wish I could remember the conversation because I remember bringing my little I'm a UFO CD to sign and I had my little banner and I was just so like excited that they played like my favorite songs even on their smaller support set list. But yeah,
Hmm.
I cannot
Hmm.
remember and I feel I probably was a little bit fangirly at the time just because I didn't know what to say. But I think that calmed
Yeah, I
down
mean,
after a while.
yeah. So I mean, it's just normal people, you know. I've met some how can I say it? Some famous people, and they're just normal people if you treat
Hmm.
them like normal people, you know. I,
Yeah, and I think that's the key, isn't it? You know, you're just
yes,
having a conversation about music, and you just get to hear some just really cool stories,
yes, yes.
which is great. But yeah, no, every time I've spoken to them after the shows, it's been so cool just to hear some tour stories, or some maybe teasers about what they're working on and things. It just makes you
Yes.
just more excited to go to the next gig.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And probably like yourself, I've got so many set lists that I've collected over the times. We could probably make a book
Yeah,
together with what we've collected.
yeah. I should print out you or make you copies from my set list and send them over, maybe.
Yeah, and just have it's almost like a little time capsule. And so I
Oh,
suppose nicely to kind of wrap things up a little bit. I was just kind of added on the end. It would be cool if you maybe shared some additional facts that may not be known to everyone. Sorry. Perhaps maybe newer fans listening, a bit of a deep dive into the world of Lost Alone.
yeah, well, I think we already did a deep dive, but yeah, what can I say without saying too much? um, yeah, I also believe, in all honesty, that I don't know any more than Stephen himself. But I'm just very lucky. Well, I'm just lucky enough to have a very good memory, and yeah, I've already mentioned, I think, a few things that
Mm-hmm.
aren't necessarily common knowledge, even as a big Lost Alone fan. And yeah, where do I start? Um, I think everybody knows the song "Put Pen to Paper," but very few people know that the song was recorded around 6 times before it was released, because it was never quite right. Um, and the version of one of those early recordings exists, although I can't really figure out how anyone could have gotten hold of it. It's Yeah, it's a mystery. And yeah, then there's a song that is close to my heart, but was never released. It was, I think, Odin. I hope my pronunciation is Toms or Tombs. I don't
Tombs,
know.
yeah.
Yeah. So this song was probably the beginning of Stephen's, how shall I say it, obsession. Anyway, it was the start of the yeah, of the time about how do I leave something in the world, you know,
Mm.
and yeah, I don't know if you've heard it, but it's yeah, it begins with "Am I breathing history? Every breath, a moment I will never repeat." And yeah, so these lines were published in a demo about 15 years ago, and they still have a great influence on me today because it's so true, you know. And yeah, I mean, it's a bit, yeah, do the best of your, you know, do your best every day, and and because it's a moment that you will never repeat. And generally, I'm a big fan of lyrics, and there are few, there are quite a few songs by Lost Alone that have had a lasting impact on me. And
That's
what else?
did
Yeah, what?
did them
Yeah.
lyrics have they been put in Breathe in the Future, Exhale in the Past?
They,
Oh, they're
yeah,
similar.
a variation of this very lyric. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's more more or less the same meaning, but it's a different. Yeah. Yeah.
that's amazing. I
So
definitely didn't know that. That is cool.
then the song Euphoria was written in Berlin, and I'm sure several others were too. And what else can I say? Of course, there's a huge catalog of unreleased songs. A few of them I know, but the majority will probably always remain in Steven's vault.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, certainly several hundred songs in various stages of development that we will probably never hear.
I
And
wonder, I wonder how many demos and unreleased songs. I reckon it must be close, or maybe in the thousands. Would you say over time?
yeah, maybe, yes, maybe, yeah, all in in different in various stages of
Mm-hmm.
development. But he has so many, and there was a time where he wrote a song a day. I
Yeah.
remember that back in the forum days for the second album, and yeah, it's yeah, yeah. I really would like to just dive into his database for a few hours to just yeah,
I
you know,
know. Where would you start? That's just I can't imagine that many. It's just so cool to think about, and so many
yeah.
potential songs that could be as well.
I don't think I can contribute much more at the moment. I mean, I could go on for hours, but
No, I
right
think there
now,
was some really good facts. I mean,
yeah,
I've
thank
learned
you.
something new. Um, I mean, this has been so good. I cannot believe it's been an hour. I thought it might be a 20-minute chat, but I definitely underestimated how much we could possibly talk about the band. And
Yeah,
I feel we definitely should do this again. And we could
yeah,
even
yeah.
bring
We
in
should.
more people as well.
Yeah, true. And we can do the quiz next time, I think, because we are already like you said,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a long time now. We don't want to bore anyone,
just
and
for some context, I was going to quiz Mateo, so I was going to play a few snippets of the intro of a Lost Alone song and see if he guesses it correctly. But you're right, I think we've had such a good chat and we have done a real deep dive into a lot of the history from a fan's perspective.
yeah. So thanks again for the opportunity to talk to you and share my thoughts. I hope it was interesting, and I yeah, it was very pleasant and was very nice. Mm, because we haven't, yeah, like you said before, we haven't had the chance to talk that much after shows because it's always so loud and
Mm-hmm.
noisy and a lot of people and yeah. So yeah, I hope we can hear more about Lost Alone, maybe in another podcast episode, and maybe from the band themselves, new music, and yeah, I'm really excited about what to come. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, thank you so much for joining and preparing with so many cool stories. I mean, I've definitely found out some really fun things. I've just have the envision of Stephen playing the guitar with his shoe and just I also Mark's Monday blog sounds so wholesome. I wish that was still a thing
yeah,
as well. If
yeah, it
Mark
was
happens
amazing.
to listen to this, maybe we could get a special Mark Monday blog. Um,
Yeah,
but no, thank you so much for joining. We will definitely have to do this again because I definitely think there's more to talk about. But I feel I should end it as how Stephen ends his own podcast by asking, "What's for breakfast pudding?"